we're officially live on the channel once again, so welcome everybody to the podcast. Today I've got the fabulous Nikolai on here, so very, very big welcome to you from the Philippines as well. So we're just going to be talking to Nikolai and finding out more information about Nikolai. There might be a little lag potentially on the internet, so just bear with us if that happens. But you can add comments in the comment section as always. Make sure to approve access with StreamYard if you want to add comments. This will be on the YouTube channel later as well, so you can watch it on repeat then as well. So we'll get into it. So Nikolai, do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, I think we've got a lag already.
Oh, back. Sorry. I am in the Philippines right now, so that we have two lines here, so you might be kicking into the line.
Yeah.
I might have to go and just speak, or just to help quick.
Yeah, don't worry. Do what you need to do.
Just one second.
This is what can happen on a podcast when it's live. And
sorry, Rebecca.
Do not worry.
Apologise because we are live.
It's absolutely fine. Do not worry at all. It happens all the time.
Hopefully it's all right then.
Yeah. So do you want to just introduce yourself, Nikolai, and let everybody know who you are and what you're doing at the moment?
Okay. Well, I'm Nikolai Naylor, which I know you know, Rebecca. But I have an accountancy practice in the UK. So we also have another business here in the Philippines, which is intelligent. Other them build teams if they can't get team members in the UK. Did you hear that, Rebecca?
A little bit. It did cut out a little bit, but I will cover that for you. So essentially Nikolai has a accounts practice in the UK and also offers outsourcing in the Philippines as well to other bookkeepers and accountants.
Yes, that's right. Bookkeepers and accountants, just to help. It's normally when people aren't able to get team members and they want their team in the UK to focus on the added value stuff.
Yeah,
lots of success with.
And it's not surprising because on this channel I've spoken about quite a few times, and also at the QuickBooks Roadshow recently, about the fact that we have a talent shortage gap. So not enough people coming into the industry and not enough with the right skills that we need to pass on to the next generation. So you're essentially bridging that gap.
Exactly. And there's also what we're hearing is a lot of people are going into industry and commerce as well instead of practice. So that's another, even if there is the talent, then they seem to be leaving it as well.
Yeah, and in fairness, I don't know if you knew this, but I started off in practice. So I spent 8 years in practice, did all my qualifications, and then moved into industry because yeah, so I worked in industry for about 5 or 6 years, and then I opened up my own practice after that. And there's lots of reasons why, but mainly in industry at the moment, what I'm seeing still with some of the research that I was doing for this show was that because industry can offer you a little bit more flexibility in some cases compared to practice, that's why a lot of people are moving over. For me, it was the commercial acumen.
Yeah. I went from commerce and industry to have my own practice. I did.
Oh wow!
And that's because I wanted more autonomy and I wanted control. So that's why I did that back in 2012.
Oh wow! So what? And I don't know if anybody knows this. You will do because I've spoken about it in the Facebook groups before, and everybody knows that I'm a bit of a bookworm. I love reading books. I love reading stories about everybody else and what they're doing, and I try and absorb everything, any kind of guidance, practice, stories that I can, so that I can implement them in my own. And Nikolai wrote a fantastic book. I have a copy of it here, but Nikolai has the most recent version, which is all about getting the accountancy practice you want, because there are 100 different things that you can do really, really well with a practice, and about a million things you can do very, very wrong without realizing you're going down a bit of a rabbit hole with your practice. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about your book and what inspired you to do that in the first place?
Yeah. So I mean, I will send you this copy. This is
Yeah.
the new one, cover and everything. So it's called The Firm You Want. So it's so that the reason for doing it was because it's actually really, I didn't realize it, but everybody knows a lot, and when you start writing it down, you actually then realize what you know, and you know that you know it in a certain order. So I wanted to do it to sort of just impart some of my knowledge. And it's not that I've got amazing knowledge, but just my experience, so people didn't have to waste time making mistakes that I've made, and I've learned from other people as well. So it's not just me, um, but then it's an easier way of looking at it. And what I found a path that I wish I'd known earlier, where
Yeah.
I could then get myself out of the business and then be like working on the business instead of in the business, if that makes sense. It took a while. I mean, it didn't happen overnight, but it's a structure. You do need a certain size as well in order to do it properly, because you need the people. So you need the revenue to people. So
Yeah.
the whole point of it was just to give people an idea what to look at. And it's not that people need to build a massive practice or anything, because they might not need to. So, and I say that in here, and also talk about, well, you know this, Rebecca, the 30 ways to fail. And that's really important, because if you know the ways to fail, then you theoretically know how not to fail.
But that's what I like about your book that differs to some of the others, because for me, I've always learnt by making a mistake. I don't, you know, I've got to reverse engineer something, and then it's a lot better. Yeah. So you sharing that, again, makes, from my perspective anyway, I've been able to implement a lot of what you have done a lot quicker than, you know, simply reading something and trying to take it in and thinking, yeah, I know it. No. And I've only had the practice for 2 years now, and I have probably made at least 10 mistakes on the list.
Only 10 in 2 years. That's good.
Yeah. But in fairness, you know, it's so easy. We speak about this in the Six-Figure Club and, you know, with the students all the time, that when you're running a practice, you know, you start very much as the technician and you're doing the doing, and you've gone into running a practice because you know what you're doing, and you want to serve clients, and it's like, that's great, that's fantastic. And I spent the first year of the business working all hours under the sun. I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, doing everything I needed to do to get clients through the door and taking everybody in as well. You know, it was like an open door season for anybody, which was a terrible mistake looking back, but only because you don't realize at the time that really you should be focusing on, obviously, building the practice, but in a way that's sustainable, and that you've got the right clients, that you've got the same thought processes as your clients, and you're all on the same page, which was not what I was doing. I can assure you.
But I think most people do that, Rebecca. So and it is a fault of, I think, accountants, because that's what I sort of mentioned as well in the book, is that as accountants, bookkeepers, we think that we should know everything as well and be doing everything. And it's changing that mindset. A lot of it is changing your mindset, just to make sure that you don't believe that you're the only one that can do things.
Yeah. And also, I think I speak to a lot of bookkeepers who are just starting out in the profession. So there's and accountants who've got the AAT qualification or ICB, and they go one of two ways. They either set up a practice and then panic because they don't know everything, or they don't set up a practice because they don't know everything.
Gosh,
which is interesting. And I always say, one of my mantras is that I do not know everything, and every single day is a learning day, because tax changes every year. There's, you know, pension changes. There's the budget. There's everything that's going on that you've got to keep up to date with. So you can't know everything, but it's knowing where to go when you don't know everything and asking the right questions, which is the difference.
100%. And the good thing now, you've got Google. So if you don't know it, you can actually do Google, and you don't have to know everything as long as you know the basics. And I think when you start, you do have to do most things because you have to understand it all. But then once you do that, then you've got the processes you can then, when you're enabled to pass it on as well.
Yeah.
When you're able to, obviously, with revenue. But
So what if you had, you know, and I know again you're very, very well known in the bookkeeping and accounting industry, but
oh,
not so
thank
much
you.
for for the students who are watching necessarily, because they've not yet built their network up, and they're not,
Yes. Yeah.
they're not on LinkedIn interacting, etc.
Yeah.
yet. We'll get you there, don't worry. Um, so for those that have heard about you now, and would be asking the questions of, what would you say was the top mistake or top thing you wish you had known when you first started out in your business, that you think would be useful for somebody looking to set up their business?
Well, it's very interesting because the answer I had to someone asked me that question, it was Mark Swindell asked me that question, and it's actually I would have actually bought a practice fees or even
Yeah.
just some fees, and the reason is because then you get some traction in moving forward. Obviously, you might need a loan for that or something, but I think that's what you did, Rebecca, from what the sound of it. You bought some fees, is that right?
No, I didn't know.
Oh, you did?
I went the opposite way. So I actually I opened up the door, I say to everybody,
Yes.
and I went door knocking. I literally
Oh, you
printed off
did.
leaflets
Wow,
and went to every business, local business, knocked
that's
on the door and said,
amazing.
"Hi, just letting you know I'm in a local area." I didn't join any of the networks, so I wasn't part of BNI, or
Yes.
I didn't have clients lining up at the door either. I didn't have um, anyone that I knew who had a business who needed a
Yeah.
bookkeeper. So it was a case of literally starting from
Oh,
scratch
wow,
and
you did
just
well.
going from there.
Knocking on every door. That's amazing because I didn't do that. I wouldn't have had the guts back then. I did start from nothing, but I sort of knew a few people as well, so I was a bit lucky. But I think if you just, I think I would have done that just for a bit more traction at the start, Rebecca.
Yeah,
And also
definitely.
delegation, I would have delegated sooner. But that wasn't right at the start. I thought people couldn't do company house setup and things like that. I had them doing payroll and bookkeeping, but I didn't have them doing that. And it wasn't until I'd had them for about over 6 months that I decided I had to do it because I was doing things late at night, watching TV
Yeah.
with the kids and everything. And I'm sure you've been there, Rebecca, and I'm sure a lot of people may be there now. But yeah, and then I couldn't carry on. It wasn't doing my marriage well any good.
No, but then I don't know what it is, but I was a manager. So when I worked in both practice and industry, and I had teams, underneath me that
Yes.
I could delegate work to, and they were really, really good. I was really lucky. I had the best
Yeah.
team who would just pick it up and run with it, no
Great.
questions asked. So very, very lucky. But since opening the doors of my own practice, I find it really difficult to delegate. I do delegate, but
Yes.
I think because deep down it's essentially it's a part of you. It's your baby. It's your business,
Yeah. No, no,
and
that is. Yeah. It's a good
giving
way of
out that
putting it.
responsibility and trust is like that
Yeah.
next level almost. So I can understand why a lot of people are reluctant to do that, because it's your reputation and your business, isn't it?
It
And what you
is.
put out
It
there in the
is.
public.
What's interesting, the hardest thing to delegate was PNC meeting, potential new client meetings. So I
Yes.
have that's all delegated. It's been delegated for nearly a year now, but so I don't even do those now. But that help having got a proposal, being able to do that. But yeah, that was a tough thing to do because it is like I used to be good at getting people in, so now I don't really get involved. I'm just at the strategy level for Naylor Accountancy now, which is
Wow.
where I always wanted to be. Yeah, but it hasn't been. I was sucked in after the first acquisition to do. I was working like silly hours, like 14 hours a day, just to make sure that worked. Because we learned, and there's stories in there which you'll have read, Rebecca. Because it was a nightmare. But we just but I learned so much from it. So,
Yeah.
like you say, you learn from mistakes, and that's where I learned learned so much from that. But I
So
learned a lot about other people as well as myself, and how you
yeah.
should be doing it, if that makes sense. And also, what I learned was how it sounds a bit bad, I'm not boasting, but how good we were doing things in Naylor Accountancy Services because I hadn't realised we were compared to, well, the acquired company because it was such a mess.
Yeah, but I want to just focus on that, because I've been asked this question before today
Yeah.
of, the learning aspect of opening up a business, because not there's not a lot of people who talk about it in a lot of detail in our sort of space. And
Yes.
the difference between the day that you do open your doors to how much you learn, not just about the business and you acquire new knowledge about tax, etc., because you have to,
Yes.
more so than ever before, because there's almost, when you're an employee, there's always someone to ask. Whereas when it's you yourself, you've got to go out there, get the knowledge, etc.
Yes.
Even from a personal aspect, how much you grow as a person and the things you start to learn about yourself that actually, oh, okay, I can do that. And oh, I didn't realize that I could do that quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a bit of an eye opener from my point. I don't know if you felt like that. Is that something that's continued from day dot
Yeah.
or more
It's
so
really
than?
interesting because like I used to love learning. I still do. I do. I love learning, but I used to love doing exam learning.
Yeah.
So I did my accountancy exams. I'm a SEMA, so I did SEMA, and then I did corporate treasury exams because I was working in treasury in Shell at the time. So
Oh,
I did
wow.
them, and I just like doing exam. And then I did a GCSE in Spanish. Then I did an AO level in Spanish, and it's but but what I'm getting at is that I didn't think of self development. So I don't. And you've heard of. I had no idea who Napoleon Hill was. I had no idea who John Maxwell was or Earl
John Maxwell.
Nightingale. Yeah, and all these people who were sort of thought leaders and like and and the mindset. I never thought of mindsets. What I learned, but it's actually that when you say what would I have liked to have known for earlier, is probably mindsets because I didn't even know mindset. You know, so Stephen Covey, I mean, the 7 habits of highly effective people. I mean, that's gold mine,
Yeah.
and you know, it's all those things. So now I do self development all the time. I love YouTube, listening and watch. I don't really watch; I listen more, and you know, podcasts, things like that. So this is really useful what you're doing, especially for your audience, Rebecca. So any of you listening, it's definitely worth having a playback if you're looking in practices for what Rebecca does. But the self development is a massive thing, and what you just said there is you developed, and I developed massively. But even I didn't think of the self development. I started doing a mastermind, and then it started getting me thinking more about how I am and what I
Yeah.
do, rather than just focusing on the doing of the business. If that makes sense, like
Yeah,
how to do tax
definitely.
return and everything. And that's what I grow a little bit about in the book. But it is all about mindset, knowing your mindset, and making sure that you know what you want, and you continue to develop. I don't want to do any more exams though, Rebecca. I've had
No,
enough.
I'm it's quite funny that you mentioned the exam piece. So I think the way we're very, very similar. And
Yeah.
whilst I did my AAT, I did my ACA, and then I did the ICB in 9 weeks to show
Oh,
the
you did.
students
Oh,
what they could do.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just did the exams one after another to show
Yeah.
what they were like. Because I thought I can't talk about the ICB if I've not done the exams myself. That's a bit,
Yes. No,
So
no.
did all of that,
Well done.
but I love learning, and my
Yeah.
CPD points are probably triple, quadruple what everybody else's is,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
all I've got on in the background is, Rebecca Pennyworth or David, etc. on CPD store, or
Yeah.
I'm reading these, as you say, the mindset books, trying to learn
Yeah.
from other people and what they've done.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest differences I found is that I used to be a people pleaser, a terrible
Oh,
people pleaser to
wow.
my own
Yeah.
detriment,
Yeah.
which I didn't realise until I opened the
Yeah.
business. So where I've had to put in sort of safeguards with clients to say, no, these are the opening hours.
Oh,
Emails will be
good.
monitored in this
Yes.
time. You can bring in these hours, setting
Yeah.
those boundaries. I've taken some of that and applied that in my personal life. And
Yeah.
now my peace of mind is up here compared to
Yeah.
where it was before, whereas it was a bit chaotic and I'd say yes to
Yes.
everything and I'd be arranging family gatherings. Now I just turn up.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a big
you know,
change then.
little things like that you don't
Yeah.
realise,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
That's really.
Could I ask you a little bit more about the what you're doing with the outsourcing piece? And could you explain
Yes.
that to the students what outsourcing actually is? Because it might be the
Yeah.
first time I've heard that term.
So what we do, we call intelligent. Well, the business is called intelligent outsourcing, which is on there. It's back to front on there. But what we say, we actually offshoring. So we say offshoring is the most intelligent way to outsource. But outsourcing of work is whereby you give some work to an outsourced company, and then they do the work using their systems and processes. and then they give it back to you. You have to then review it, and then if there's mistakes, you'll give it back. But it won't be the same person doing the work every time. So they don't learn from mistakes and stuff. That's the basics of it. Whereas offshoring, which is what we do, people get a person to work for them, only for them, within intelligent outsourcing here. So under, in our offices and everything, and then they do use the client systems, processes, and way of working. They can even contact clients and pick up the phone and speak to them, whatever. My Naylor team, they speak to clients, and they've even done Xero and QuickBooks trainings with them, and they email. So it's basically, it's like a team member, but we're in the Philippines. But India and Philippines are sort of the big ones for offshore and outsourcing, and so there is a difference between the two. The Philippines is probably a bit more expensive because there's more demand for them, because their English is, the people find their English easier. Yeah, well, they find it a bit easier to understand, and it's not. Yeah. Although the Indians are probably better at English written because everything's in English, but it's just the communication sort of doesn't always work as well. I've been told. So it works well by building teams. So people build one team member, and then they start going on, and then the team in the UK, they focus on that added value, getting in clients, and sort of the more fun part, whilst the compliance is done here.
Yeah.
Does that explain it, Rebecca?
It does explain it. Yeah. And I've heard really good things about the outsourcing offshore. Yes. In terms of there are some businesses, and I'm sure yours is the same, where those employees that work there in that country are treated incredibly well. They have incredible benefits, luxurious office spaces.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, so we just moved everybody on a 4-day work week, Rebecca, here. We're trialing it from September. We started it, and it's working really well. And we're doing it for sort of well-being and retention, because there has been a massive retention issue in the whole of it's called BPO. It's a business process outsourcing, offshoring in India and Philippines, just all over, because suddenly everybody wants these people to help, because COVID opened up everyone's eyes that you didn't need somebody in the office. You could have them somewhere else in an office. So, you didn't have to be sitting right next to you in the flesh. So we've done that, and it's amazing because the productivity stayed the same, and it's like Parkinson's law. You fit whatever is required in the time or whatever that you want. So it's working, and they're loving it. They get to vote for it. Our partners are on board with it. As long as they're still on board with it, then we'll be rolling it out in January. We start in October, so it'll be January, the 31st of January. We'll start rolling out properly.
Oh, wow. So that's interesting. Did you know my business has a 4-day working policy too?
No. Didn't know that.
So we work Monday to Thursday. Friday we don't work. We don't.
Yes, we don't work Fridays. I thought it was just you.
No,
we don't work Fridays. All of you. Brilliant.
So we don't focus on timesheets either. We focus on output. So it's, if the job is done, finish early. I'm not bothered, as long as it's done to the highest it can possibly done. Then perfectly fine. So they don't have to work so many hours Monday, so many hours Tuesday. It's, have you done the job? Yes or no? So we work a little bit differently, and we're 100% remote, 100% paperless. Everybody works from home. So awesome.
I didn't know you all on 4-day work. I thought it was just you.
No. And they can work whenever they want. If they want to work at 4 a.m, they can work at 4 a.m. It doesn't matter. So
wow.
Yeah.
How did you client communications then? Did you just have to build those in, or?
No. So with client communication, again, I set up a rule where there are certain hours in the day that they can call, and 100% they will pick up the phone. So it's between the hours of 10 and 2. We'll pick up the phone. No problem. Yeah. But outside of that, you have to leave a message. We'll get back to you. All emails that have a reply to say we'll get back to you within 48 hours, which we always do, 48 working hours. And the clients love it, because they know that in those given times they will definitely get hold of us. We'll always be there. And unless it's absolutely urgent, of which I've never had a single case of anything being absolutely urgent on a Friday, then I can step in. But yeah, it works, and everybody's happy. They've got time with their families, relaxing, walking the dogs, etc. on a Friday.
Brilliant.
And yeah, it's absolutely, it works very, very well.
That's awesome. And that's what they're saying here as well. Like lots of the guys, because I've been asking them as well, I mean, you know, how it's going. And they're saying it's great because they can spend more time with their families. Because some of them actually, because this is how the Filipinos are, so they may be living further away. So they have like a rent a room here, and then they'll go back at the weekends. But now they're getting 3 days with their family at home. So they very happy, and the families are happy as well. So it's actually fantastic. Really working well.
Well, there was something I spoke about, you know, again on the roadshow with attracting and retaining staff.
Yes.
There was work that was done by Daniel Kahneman, he's a Nobel Prize winner, and he spoke about how happiness has a longer term effect. Experience has a longer term effect on happiness than short term monetary increases like salary or, you know, buying a car, buying the latest mobile phone, etc. So I thoroughly believe in that. So I try and give the best work experience that I possibly can to
What's
staff.
his name?
Daniel Kahneman.
Daniel Kahneman. Cool.
It's worth reading his research.
How do you spell Kahneman? Sorry,
it's Kane. So HAM, I think. I'll send you a link.
Cool. Thanks. So, guys, if you're watching this and you're a student, it's definitely worth it. Whenever you hear anybody give you a name of someone, it's always worth getting it down, and then you can YouTube them anyway. Lots of the time, there's lots of things there you can get. So it's just a big tip for everyone, because I do it all the time.
I do that. That's why I'm always posting on LinkedIn book recommendations. Just send them through, and I'll get through them. I've probably read 100 books this year on Audible alone.
Wow.
Back to back to back. A bit of a sponge on the knowledge front. But last question for you. I won't keep you much longer. With, as I say, we've covered a little bit about the book, covered a little bit about what you're doing right now. But what are you going to be doing in the future? What does 2024 look like for you? I can't believe I'm saying 2024, but what does that look like for you? And have you got any big plans? Are you going to any of the events next year? It'd be great to catch up.
It would be. Well, we've actually got a stand with intelligent outsourcing at Accountex London.
Oh, nice.
So Manchester, we should be there as well. We haven't sorted that out yet. And then we may go back to Canada. We've just come from Canada, Toronto.
I saw that.
So hashtag hamster was there. So if anyone wants to know what that is, there's a little blog on LinkedIn or something. But yeah, so I'm looking at talking next year, Rebecca. So I'm looking to get some talking. I actually talked. It was only 20 minutes, but I did a flash meeting at Accountex Toronto. So I'm looking to get some to talk more. So I'm hoping to get some talking stuff or panels in Accountex London, if I can persuade Caroline to let me in once I've in my request. And we're growing Naylor Accountancy again, so we'll be looking for another acquisition next year. So we're looking at doing an acquisition a year. That's the plan. It might be a small acquisition, because there was a big one this year, so it might be a smaller one next year. And intelligent outsourcing, we're looking to grow that mass, because we've got 3 offices, but we've got space to fill it with 75 people now.
Oh, wow.
So we're 100 at the moment, so we're looking to sort of fill that up.
Wow.
Fill that up.
Flipping heck, so a lot going on.
yeah, but we're also looking at clients, Canada, growing that Canada client base as well as the UK base, and then moving into USA more next year as well. We've got some, but we're not that many.
Flipping heck. Wow.
But I've got a team. But Rebecca, I've got a team. If I didn't have a leadership team in both Naylor Accountancy Services and Intelligence, I would not be able to do it. And that's part of the rhythm of the business and the organizational structure. So that's what allowed me to do this. Not me, but us, because it's not me. I'm just me.
I say that a lot. It's just me. Yeah, but I think that's something I'm going to be speaking about. I won't today because we'll be here for hours and hours. Is working on your business and not in the business.
Yeah.
And that getting that right, again, it's a learning curve, because if you've worked all your life as an employee, it's difficult to change from having that employee mindset. And I struggle, and I speak about that all the time.
I
And
did, Rebecca.
Oh, well, no one teaches you, do they?
Right.
When you're at school, you're taught to do your education and then get a job. You're not taught do the education and then set up a business, and you know how to do any of that per se. So it's
you learn from mistakes, like you said.
But we love to share. But if anybody wants to contact you and connect with you, how can they do that?
If you just go on LinkedIn and just direct message me, then I'll get back to you. I'm on LinkedIn. That's my main form of communications, which you probably know, Rebecca.
Yeah.
So I am on there a fair bit. I do 1 or 2 posts a week, and I try and comment on everyone. It's a bit more difficult at the moment doing all this, just because I'm all over the place with so many meetings. But so I feel like I'm missing out on what's actually happening on LinkedIn because of the different time zones as well.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, so LinkedIn.
Okay. And if they want to see your book, where can they buy the book or download the book?
No, it's on Amazon. So it's on Kindle. It's only I've got it as the lowest price I can have it, which is £9.99, because it's in colour. I can't get it any cheaper than that, and I've got photos in. But it sort of brings it to life. And it was a Lena who actually suggested putting photos in, because they had your book, and they said, you've got all these photos, put them in, because it brings it to life. And then I put colour in. So yeah, Kindle. It's on Amazon. Look in Nikolai Naylor on Amazon, and there's only one of me, so which is quite handy.
If you really can't find Nikolai, which you should be able to, go on my LinkedIn and go to my connections, and you can find him in there anyway. So
yes.
Just a cheat way of getting through. But we'll let you get back to being in the Philippines. And thank you so much for joining today. It's been a pleasure as always. And I'm sure we'll catch up soon.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Rebecca. And bye-bye, #hamster.
Take care all.
See you. Bye.